Hi, Eva.
Hi, Kate.
All right. Thanks for letting me be in your class today. It was fun to be in there. I noted some things that I saw that made me very happy. You perk up. I'm going to be looking at my computer because I forgot to print my notes, so it's just techie. You really perk up when you're working with your small group pod, so it was fun. I think I told you this a minute ago, but like you seemed a little bit low energy when like Hilda called on you at one point for something, but then you perked up when you were with your own small group pod, and it's clear that like you like being in front of the crowd and that your time with students is important to you. You were also clearly intellectually prepped, although you said you didn't feel as prepped with Hilda as you wanted to be, but you were able to give students specific feedback. What do you think the impact was on that specific feedback? Like, did you notice any for any of those kids in the pod?
Yeah, I feel that Hamza knows to introduce
He's such
his
a delight.
answer, opposed to just like giving what the answer is, but making it easier on the reader.
Yeah, no, that's he was resistant in his special way, but he seemed by the end to come back around. And I also thought it was cute how he and Mariah were like, he was like, "What's your theme?" He's like, "What's your paraphrase?" So they were working together. I also thought that your directions before launching into independent practice were clear and your energy was high. So that was another example where like you got in front of the group. I felt like you squared up. The other thing is that you narrated after you gave directions, and I wish I had videotaped it because the class was really sleepy. And as soon as you started narrating, it was like, and like they started working. And so you shouldn't question your influence. I know sometimes you feel like in your team teaching in class, it is not, you don't feel like you are shining. That might not be the fair way to put it. But the kids respond really well to you. And I watched it in a subtle way. And had I had a camera, I could have captured it beautifully. So don't question your influence.
Okay.
As much as you are. You can question if you want. I will tell you how to live your life. Awesome. So today we're going to focus on active monitoring or aggressive monitoring. I prefer active. I think aggressive is a little much, but that's fine. I don't know if you remember, Matt ran a PD in the summer where we actually did an activity. Do you remember it?
Vaguely.
It was math problems because he's a math guy.
And then each desk had, okay.
What do you remember from that? If you remember, no pressure, like the components of active monitoring, or what are some things that stick out?
We went around and we did some kind of like note on each paper.
Yep. So
on like our clipboard, not on the actual paper, or maybe it was on paper. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember either, but I think they're both. Those are both components of active monitoring, both on the paper and some sort of record that you keep for yourself, which you always have your clipboard on. Awesome. What else do you remember about that?
We went around more than once.
Do you remember the difference between the laps?
No, but from what I've learned in other settings,
right?
Like the first time we went around, we was looking for something, and then the second time we went around, we was looking for something else.
Right. Good. Awesome. Yes. So we're gonna actually watch a clip, and as we watch it, I want you to think about what actions the teacher take in the video and what will be the impact on student learning and the purpose. Make sense? Not meant to be a quiz. But I am going to take it.
You have two really short passages to read. They're more like little paragraphs, and a prompt at the bottom. You're going to plan on the back. So it mostly just looks like a blank piece of paper, but that's where your plan is going to go. It's a little bit of outline practice. You have 12 minutes to do this. Begin. And I'm coming around first looking for those full headings. Jason for his urgency. Don't forget the active readings passage are short for you, she's doing it. on checking for your author's purpose note. I'll check it off if it's correct, I'll put a dot if it's not.
An author's purpose note should start with a verb. The author is trying to do what? It could be to inform, to persuade, any of those things. Just make sure it starts with a verb.
You have 7 minutes remaining, you wanna be getting to the outline within the next minute. And now that I'm seeing people getting to the outline, I'm coming around checking your thesis statement.
Don't forget to put quotes around the titles of the articles. Then you got it. This is asking you to compare the key information. I think the key information in the second one is polar bears, and it's a detail. So what is the key idea presented in that second article? The first part of your thesis is excellent, just fix that part. The nice one, I like saying how they show the information. Nice job.
You have 5 minutes to complete your outline. If I see strong theses, now I'm looking for strong evidence. AJ's doing a really nice job of writing his evidence in shorthand. Paragraph 4, sentence 2. Doesn't take a super long time. Linnea did the same thing, just a key word from the quote.
Awesome. Okay. So, what actions did you notice? What was the impact, do you think?
So she would state what she's going around looking for,
Yeah.
and then she would give a shout out to the kid who was doing it, or like some kind of like positive action. Then she would give feedback to the shout out would be to the whole class, the feedback would be to that person on just that thing that she was looking for, and then she would do some kind of jot, whether it was on her clipboard or on the student's paper, and she did that for purpose note, outline, thesis, and the last thing I didn't get.
Evidence, but yeah. Yeah, and the other thing that I thought was clear from this video that we won't get into as much today, but it's something we talked about before, is just like her level of intellectual preparedness. Like you can't do that effectively if you don't know what you're looking for. So like going in, like I know what the strong evidence is that I'm gonna be looking for on a student's page. So that was the other thing I noticed. What I would be curious to know, and we'll talk about in a few minutes, is like how was she was getting around to a lot of kids, and I saw you write your note, like how do you get to all kids, and we'll talk about that too. But was she targeting specific kids? So if I could talk to her, I would say like, is there a reason did you know to go to certain kids, or was it just like, I'm doing quick hits around the room all the time? So that would be a question. So what do you think is the difference between active monitoring you and Hilda were doing today versus what you saw her doing? Like what's the gap?
Well, I know when I'm on around doing active monitoring, I'm trying to look at everything that they're doing at once.
And so overwhelming. And you get caught. You get caught on the Andrews, you get caught on the Edwards, which isn't wrong. It just, there are a lot of kids. Interesting. The other thing I noticed, anything else that you noticed that was different from what you all did today versus what she was doing in this video? Granted, I know it's a different lesson and everything, but.
she's just moving like really, really fast.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one teacher and a whole bunch of kids. Me and Hilda are split, so we don't move as fast.
Right.
Because the class is split.
Yeah.
Usually we know who we are, what sections of the room we are each
Mhm.
looking at.
Yeah. And the other thing I noticed that she did that you all didn't do, so you all narrated, which she did. So you did a lot of the narration, and then Hilda did at the end. Is sort of naming what you're looking for, which goes into the fact that you're sort of looking at the whole piece. But I think there is power in kids knowing what you're checking for their own clarity and for your sanity, and not getting to Edward and being like, OMG, I don't even know where to go from here because we haven't, we've got a whole mess. It'll help him target what he's working on, and help you know what to be looking for. So, based on that, what do you think your action step should be?
That when we go around to give feedback, to make it a bite-sized chunk.
Yeah, I think that's
Is that
part of
another
it.
thing?
Mine was broader but includes that. Yep, bite-sized feedback. I said you will effectively active monitor by creating a plan with Hilda that includes monitoring laps, and that you'll name the laps out loud. I'll email this to you, but you're also a note taker, I know. Name the laps out loud and determine like your system for marking it, whether it's on your clipboard and their paper. So the example I gave that you could have used today, I think there are two ways, and when we get into our practice time, I think we should talk about the logistics of this. Like, is it better, you all have been doing your work in pods, you're with 2 pods, she's with 2 pods. Is that the best way to move forward? My other idea today was you could have either said, right now, I'm coming around to look for an effective paraphrase, and then Miss Medina will come around afterwards and check for the content of your claim. You'll get a check if you're on track, you'll get a dot if it needs revision. Or it could be, right now Miss Medina and I are both coming to our pods to look for an effective paraphrase. It'll be a dot if it's incorrect, check if it's right. And then now we're coming around looking for the content of your claim, or whatever the next step would be. So I think either of those could be, but I think it depends on you and Hilda and your style, or honestly your areas of strength. Like if in a specific lesson you feel like you're the person who's better equipped to jump into the content, then you might look for something different than she's like, I don't know.
Okay.
How does that sound?
Good. Sorry, processing.
As you should. Process it.
No,
anyway.
it sounds good. I'm just thinking of a list of multiple ways that we could do this.
Right, and I wanted to also get into it in our practice time, like what are the pitfalls, because I have some thoughts on those too.
Okay.
I don't necessarily have solutions, but we can talk about the problems all day long. Okay, so restate it back to me, or some gist of it. I know I didn't let you take notes, and now I'm quizzing you, but generally, what's the action step?
That we're gonna do active monitoring labs and create a system for marking. So what it would look like is I'm coming around checking for this, Miss Medina is coming around checking for this. You'll get this if you have it correct, and you'll get this if it needs revision.
Should we want any notes? No, teasing. Awesome. Okay, cool. So let's talk sort of strategy, and possibly practice is a little bit of a funky one to practice because I'm just going to make you stand up and tell me what it would sound like to name the lap, but that's okay. Let's practice. But let's talk first about where maybe you could incorporate something like this in tomorrow's lesson. And I know they're independently reading 16, but I bet you're going to have to move things back because you all didn't get through 15 today.
For 15 they're doing it for homework.
Okay.
And they, right before we ended class, we told them how and what they're going to be annotating from 15. So tomorrow when we start class, we're just going to do a debrief and jumping into 16.
Awesome. Yeah.
But we're doing conferences.
Yeah. Oh, because you're doing independent reading.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to look a little different.
A little
In
bit, but
theory.
it could still work.
Yeah, in theory, where might it land in tomorrow's conferencing lesson? Or even just I know we had planned in our internalization for you to do possibly a small group poll for the exit ticket, but what might it look like if you were doing active monitoring during the exit ticket?
During the exit ticket.
Yeah.
Whole group.
Yeah.
I would say, alright, we're gonna be coming around, checking what you have so far. I'll be coming around to see your paraphrase, for your hidden and main question, and Ms. Medina is going to come around and look at how you unpack the prompt.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. And if we think about the exit ticket for tomorrow, which is that graphic organizer, are you doing an
just
exit
doing-
ticket? No, but that's fine.
Graphic organizer, okay.
Are you guys still doing the graphic organizer?
Yes.
Or are you trying to exit ticket?
No.
But even then, I think you all could decide, like, Miss Askew is going to be coming around and giving you a check if you have a quote that reflects bias and prejudice. And then Miss Askew is going to be coming around. I just said Miss Askew twice. Miss Medina is going to be coming around and checking for your analysis of that quote. And then as some version of that. Or if you want to do it in pods, it could just be naming to your pods or to the whole class, right now I'm coming around for this, I'm going to be coming around for that, and figuring out a system for marking. What do you think, you said you were running through some options in your head or processing how this might work in your team talk class, so what's your thinking?
I was thinking just kind of like breaking down, I guess, the criteria for success and using those as our checkpoints with the kids.
That's huge. And also, the same way that intellectual prep is important, really zoning in on what your criteria for success is also important. Awesome. Do you think it makes more sense for you all to do whole class or for you to do in your pods?
I think it depends on the task,
Makes sense.
because actually the pods change. No, the pods don't change. Who's monitoring what pods change?
Okay.
Like, so today Miss Medina was doing 1 and 2, I was with 3 and 4. But one day I did 2 and 3 and she did 1 and 4.
It's just a party. Cool. Okay, so it depends on the lesson. I think that makes sense. Does it feel feasible to add this as a component to your planning meeting to briefly talk about like how we're going to be actively monitoring?
Yeah, I think that's easy to add to the planning, especially since we're going to changing slightly like how we deliver the information based on some areas of improvement whole class. I think this is an easy add-on.
Okay, cool. Okay, so you kind of just did. Oh, I wanted to also just quickly troubleshoot because I think we should name like one of the things that came to my mind is like, where did you get caught up today? You got caught up with Edward, not for actually. You gave him pretty quick feedback, but like that consumed time, and then you also get caught up with Andrew. So I'm just trying to think of like how. My wondering is like maybe if you actually make things more bite-sized, it's not going to work for Andrew in the same way, but for Edward, like at least he knows what his focus is, and then it helps you give clear feedback. Not that clarity was the problem today, because it wasn't. I thought your feedback that you gave him was really specific, but more that it like becomes more targeted. Does that make sense? What other issues can you imagine popping up?
It's kind of not forgetting that I'm looking at one thing, but like looking at additional stuff opposed to just that one thing.
Yeah, like getting caught up on the, yeah. And I know you, and you want to help everyone, and you want to like, so I think it would also just be, once again, the time thing of like not getting so caught up in the content.
Looking across the room and seeing somebody who's not in my pod, not focusing. So then.
Yeah. One thing too, we did see it. Like one possibility that I think is a little bit less important in your class, but it could be for some lessons, is doing like a procedural lap. So like the first lap, I'm coming around, you're gonna get a check if you're on task and you've started, or you've written your heading, or.
We did that at the very beginning, and then we started to learn our kids, and I think they will appreciate going back to that, like getting a sticker or something, or a check, something along those lines. but I also, want to do it like kind of like once in a while, because I don't want them to work for a sticker. Like I want them
Right, you want
to
them
be
to just
on
work
pace.
because as they're getting ready for high school, they're not gonna have that constant incentive.
Right. Yeah.
Doing
I
work.
don't.
They're gonna have to learn how to just do it and not be falling asleep, Jaden. So sleepy. He's so awake in the hallways. It's amazing how that happens. Crazy. Okay, so cool. That's helpful. So why don't you take a minute and think about how you could, you can either go back, since tomorrow's lesson's wonky, you can go back and just think about how you would script out. You've just finished telling kids what they're going to do, and how are you going to explain to them what your first monitoring lap is going to be?
Okay.
You would take those
For the exit ticket.
for today, the work that they were doing today, I saw. So, or you could do it for tomorrow's exit ticket.
Okay. I'll go back to.
That was like the starting their short responses, the paraphrasing before they got into the.
Well, I don't know if we were still there, but they actually had to take what was on their sheet and put it in prose form.
Oh, okay.
Were you there for that?
No, I think I did like right before that.
I would say, alright guys, so now we are going to now put all the work that you did for the last two graphic organizers that we did yesterday and today, and we're going to put it into a short response form. As you begin this, we are going to be coming around checking for two things. I'm going to come around checking to see if you unpack the prompt. Now remember, when you unpack the prompt, it's in a way that you understand the question. So I'm going to be coming around checking, unpacking the prompt. Ms. Padilla is going to be coming around checking your paraphrase.
How did it
Was
feel?
there something else? It was fine. I was just trying to remember what we did today because it was long ago.
Yeah. I would push that when you're explaining the active monitoring labs, that you don't add in content too. So instead of just because I think it gets blurry, and if the point is like for kids to have clear next steps and for you to have a sense of what you're doing, just simply saying to them, I'm coming around looking to see if you unpack the prompt accurately, or whatever we'll go with that. And then Miss Medina is coming around to look about your paraphrase. So try it one more time.
Okay, so I'm coming around to check the unpacking of the prompt, and Miss Medina is coming around to check the paraphrase. Your paraphrase.
And how will I know if I've done it right?
And if you get a check, you're on the right track. If you get a dot, you have to revise. If you get a dot, you have to revise your unpacking of the prompt or the paraphrase.
Yeah, if you get a dot, you need to go back and rework or possibly add to your paraphrasing or your unpacking the prompt.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Good, thank you. So I'm not here tomorrow, meetings on Friday. I'm gonna try and come back in on Tuesday to look for this. Does that seem feasible and reasonable to you? Okay, cool. So I'll come back in if you want to think, and then we can talk through it at our check-in next week. How did this, we'll finish our 03 in a few minutes. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay, I'll send you your follow-up notes too.
Okay.